Thank you for being here. I am super thrilled to be in person with you. And this is one of those panels it's a really big concept, right? We know we need traceability, transparency, and trust to make this happen. Super hard to do, especially in the supply chain, where we don't know all the touch points. We can't touch all of these points, at least haven't been able to do so now, until now. And we have a couple of folks here that are working on a really compelling application that I'm hoping that you all think of just holistically from your own standpoint of your own company, but that many of the concepts within this application could apply to different sorts of things, like totally different models. So I just want you to open your mind and think about that as we explore this. Two terrific partners. BankQ is a startup that I was first made aware of a couple of years ago. I don't know if startup's the right word, but a technology company. They are working on a secure, non-crypto blockchain platform that really helps organizations reach really far down into their supply chains to collect information, but also to enable individuals in the supply chains to participate in ways they've never before. So it's a really important technology for the informal part of this that we're all struggling with. And Ashish Gadnis is the co-founder and CEO of that company. And BankQ is part of the 100 Plus Accelerator Partnership, which includes AB InBev, Colgate-Palmolive, Unilever, and Coca-Cola. And the mission is really to pilot innovation of this sort. And Molun, Zhang, has an awesome title, by the way. She's the lead for R&D experimentation and external technology with the Coca-Cola Company. And she joins us today to talk about this application. So welcome, both of you. The first question I have is for you, Molun, because I've been covering this sort of technology for a very long time. And I'm just wondering, are we at a tipping point? Like, it just feels like there's more real things happening now. So are we at a tipping point? And if so, why? Why are we there?
So I definitely think we are at a tipping point in terms of what we want to achieve, but we're not quite there on the tipping point on how do we do it. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the Coca-Cola Company, we refresh the world with 2 billion drinks a day. So that's 2 billion drinks and packaging a day that is out there. Now, how do we practically really track and trace all of this packaging? It's a big mountain to climb. So I do think the tipping point is, yes, we need solutions. We need to know what's happening with our packaging after they're being consumed. But once it's in the hand of consumer, we lose that oversight typically. So
yeah, is it just the packaging you're trying to keep tabs on?
No, there's much more within the whole supply chain, value chain, traceability. But for today, we're just going to zoom in a little bit more because we have Ashish here on the packaging, the waste, and more specifically recycling. So reuse and reduce is definitely on our table. But for today's panel, we'll look at recycling specifically, and we'll look at recycling in countries where the informal waste picking is contributing a lot to our collection of our waste material. Mm-hmm. So before I jump into maybe why we're doing this with BankQ, you can tell a little bit more about the technology itself.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, everybody. I think the most important thing to recognize, right, if you look at countries where there's a lot of informal waste picking, there are 3 existential problems. That is gender inequality, extreme poverty, and climate change, right? And they all intersect at a landfill where a mama waste picker will pick up the materials that Molun is talking about. And just to make sure we're on the same page, it is a supply chain, right? So the mama waste picker to a buyback center to a transporter to a processor, right? Where the PET then becomes pellets, flakes, and whatever. And I think the forgotten is the mama waste picker, right? Women are smarter than men. If you disagree, I always say this: leave the room. Okay, stay, which is good, fine, that's awesome. You agree with me, thank you. It's just a fact, but I think and again, jokes aside, I think the important part is that mama waste picker has been invisible for so long, yet you're walking around with a bottle that says 100% recycled PET, right? We cannot be circular if you do not put the human in the middle of that circular chain, right? So what we've done with amazing partners like Coca-Cola and AB InBev is actually not forget that you are really trying to collect more PET. Yes, you are recycling. Yes, you want to meet your EPR compliance and PRO and Scope 3, on and on and on. But it always starts with that mama waste picker. And that mama waste picker, when she sells her materials, right, through BankQ, she gets an SMS message. Remember, this mama is extremely smart, but she may never have a smartphone.
So, yes, so what is the technology? And
yes.
It's in South Africa, right?
Yes.
You're working together in South Africa on this specific one, although I know you have something else happening.
Yes.
So what does it look like? Who has it, where, and who's involved?
So you want to talk about the SMS and how that works, and I'll tell you about why we're actually.
So the informal waste collectors have phones that they're using?
Yes, so I think most people think that, you know, people in poverty don't use technology. That is not true, right? And especially women, that's why I say they're smarter. A mama waste picker, a mama farmer has an SMS phone. She may not have a smartphone, but she has an SMS phone. So the way the technology works, it's a cloud solution, runs 100% on blockchain and no cryptocurrency, because I'm yet to meet a mama waste picker who said, pay me in crypto, right? That might happen. Hey, wait, I'm sure there's somebody says we are doing it, so power to them. But the point I'm trying to make is that, so the cloud application, right, works just like any cloud application, except when the mama comes to sell her crops, or in this case, bottles, the buyback center is running on the cloud application of BankQ, so it's like a QuickBooks on steroids. And the minute she sells, she gets an SMS message. And the reason why we use blockchain, it's because of the fundamental definition of blockchain, which is if two or more people participate in one transaction, both parties get a copy of the transaction, right? That's the English definition of blockchain. I don't care who says anything different. And the mother now gets an SMS receipt. Why is that critical for circularity? Because the mother now has proof that she sold 40 kilos of blue PET, 7 kilos of cardboard. And the blockchain is sending this information through SMS in the local language. So that's and I'll stop there. And we'll go deeper.
So then how do you benefit?
So how do we benefit from it is we finally have visibility on a set of data that we've never, ever had visibility on. So imagine having the data, knowing where does our waste get collected, and who gets to collect this. How much did this person get paid? And all of that nuance is incredibly valid information. Because the people like myself, the people in our organization who make decisions about packaging innovation and how we want to, where do we want to put our products out there, the people in this room, I would say 99% of the people, we don't know how a waste picker goes by on their day-to-day. That 1% in this room is probably only Ashish today. So by truly understanding what they go through, by truly understanding where our waste is being collected, we can then make inclusive decisions based on all of that data. So it's truly having visibility to debunk myths or urban legends we had, because at best we had sample data of a research, but now we have actual live data. So instead of making assumptions and basing decisions on prejudice, really, we can actually make fact-based and data-based decisions.
So you have the information, and there's another partner in here, it's the collection center, correct?
The recycler.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So where did this idea come from? Who got it stood up? And
so I have to, I have to give credit to my colleague who's not here today, but he's based out of South Africa, who got in contact with Ashish. And I think it's one of those things where we just want to be leaders in this. We want to be a pioneer. We want to try something out. And that's really almost the R&D mentality we have to adopt, that, you know what, we don't know, let's just test it, let's experiment, which is my title, let's experiment and prove or disprove in a very agile manner if something really works or not. And if it works, let's scale.
So is it working?
Yes.
I can tell you the numbers. We just got them this morning.
Yeah, how long has this been in place?
So we started about a year ago,
Okay,
and then the real volume has ticked in since October of last year. So we're live at, I think, a little over 40 buyback centers. And these buyback centers are these micro businesses, mostly women-led, and then the waste pickers will come there. And so as of this morning, I published it this morning, it's 10 million South African rand paid into almost 3,000 families. And that's a 25% increase in income of an average informal waste picker. So that's a creed. We have a long way to go. Thank you. They deserve all the credit, right? So that's one key data point. So it's not like this, mini experiments. I love experiment in your title, though. But the other data point is over 8 million in kilos of recycled material, right? And that is a critical number to look at in terms of the number of transactions, because this is glass, this is plastic. It's a massive amount of waste that's being collected and recycled. It's data now.
So now what is Coca-Cola going to do with that data, and what does that data tell you?
Right. So I'm going to shift a little bit away from South Africa. South Africa is where we started our pilot, and it's getting bigger now that we've proven success. We've done a similar type of pilot in Nigeria, which we started this year with the 100+ accelerator that Ashish mentioned. And this is where we're starting to see the nuances, how the waste economy really is different from country to country. We as Coca-Cola, we're Coca-Cola. We are interested in our bottle, on our plastics to be collected. But having been able to do this in 2 different countries, we're starting to really understand the dynamic of the waste economy, in the informal waste economy better. So what we see, for example, in South Africa, there is a pretty good diverse amount of different material being collected. Whereas in Nigeria, we're collecting, the traders are collecting 80+% PET. So his or her profit is heavily reliant on PET material. So it means that there is a markup of 200, 400% on PET. So we as an industry, we know that we have our selfish ambition of we're collecting plastic, but we have to realize that in order to have a healthy trade in certain markets, we have to find a way to develop that market for a more broader spectrum of material. So how can we develop a broader spectrum of material to be collected with other industry leaders, with other partners on site? So that's really what we want to do with this data, to show the world, okay, we can hit critical mass, we can lower margin, we just need other people on board with us.
Yes, so it's important to let the local community define what they're going after, correct? Mm-hmm. And how will you talk about this? So the other part of this title is transparency. So where does this information get used? Is it being used internally? Is it going to be put into ESG reports? How does it get used?
All of the above. So yes, in reports, in our conversation with the government. I don't know if you want to talk about the South African government.
Yes, so I think there's some new regulations that I think South Africa is kind of leading the way. You'll see it in EU, you'll see it here. And in November this year, for example, South Africa, the regulation is that the informal waste pickers need to get paid the service fee because, it's connected to tax and things like that. The good news is the way we rolled it out, and those calculations are already in there. The other thing is plastic credits. We were just talking backstage. Or if you're looking at truck routes that are now bringing these, you can do your carbon credits, you can do, some of your ESG metrics. I think the way we're really looking at is as new regulation comes out, right? We always want to focus on the end-to-end supply chain and then figure out if you don't have certain data. So one of the data elements could be the gender equality and the bankability, right? So one of the things we're doing in this rollout is to ensure that banks and financial institutions can look at the buyback centers as thriving SME businesses and reduce the cost of credit, right? So it's not just regulatory compliance, but also banking the unbanked in that kind of near to the waste picker economy, which is the real movement of the flow of goods. So that helps.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the sidebar in a moment for a question, but just before we do that, I want to hit the third T, the trust factor. So how has this changed the relationship with that informal community in South Africa, in Nigeria? What has happened? I mean, what have you seen?
So it's nearly impossible to engage in a conversation where you have actually no data or you're just basing yourself on assumptions, right? So like I mentioned before, this is data we've never had before. So any decision, any conversation to be had in this space about waste collection would have been based on, again, prejudice and assumptions. So having this data in a trusty platform, right, where we can demonstrate that every single transaction, we have just more strength and more presence and more certainty in what we talk about and the decision we make.
And look, I'll add something, right? I think trust is something that is hard to earn, and especially if you're looking at these supply chains that are extremely complex, right? And I'll be the first one to say that blockchain is not the final end-all solution, right? What blockchain does is a tool. You as a corporation, you as an organization have to recognize that if you do it the right way, giving a mama waste picker the ability to prove her existence through an SMS that cannot be then corrupted is the first step towards trust, right? Trust and traceability and equity all go hand in hand. That's how we look at it.
Right. Well, hello, sidebar.
Oh.
Hopefully you have a question.
Yeah, we do. So it's more about Banco. Are you looking at other industries to work in other than waste pickers? So are you looking at agriculture in Africa or any other places where this kind of transaction can work best?
Actually, BenQ started in the Congo in 2014 when I was volunteering from USAID, when one of the mama farmers was refused a bank account, but you were paying $12 for her latte here. And the local bank said, I can't bank her, but I'll bank you, looking at me. So that's where the name comes from, in case you're wondering what BenQ stands for. So no, we actually have been, long before we got into recycling, we've been in agriculture. So like with the companies like AB InBev and Solvay, they use us in that first mile where a smallholder farmer faces the same challenges that an informal waste picker has. So we operate in 58 countries. Half of them are agriculture.
Mm-hmm. And then for Coca-Cola, are there other countries that you're looking at rolling out this program in?
Yes, so we started in South Africa. We've rolled out in Nigeria, and we're in the process of looking at Latin America, Central America, and some other African countries as well. So because we acknowledge that the dynamic is very different, right? So the recycler, the waste pickers, how that infrastructure looks like, culturally it's very different as well. So we are going to experiment across other regions as well.
Great. Thank you guys for the questions. Appreciate it. We're quickly getting to the end of our time together here. So I have one final question as a form of wrap up, and we'll start with you, Ashish. Just what final advice would you give to an organization that's considering something like this? What do they need to do to get themselves ready? I mean, because you can't just throw technology at it. And I'll have both of you address that question.
So look, I'll be pretty honest, right? I think you have to think about profit with purpose. You cannot think CSR and then, So just my humble request to all CEOs or whoever's out there, right, is think profit with purpose and ask yourself a very, very simple question, or ask your CEO a very simple question. If we truly believe in circularity, then can you name one mama waste picker or one mama farmer that is in our supply chain in Haiti or Zambia? Because if you think that this plastic is 100% recycled PET, you should be able to name that one mama waste picker and that she should get out of extreme poverty. If the answer is no, then that's where you need to start. No.
No, I like that answer. Sorry. Molun, go ahead.
So if there's one message I want to leave with all of you is, I started by saying we refresh the world with 2 billion drinks a day, right? And my title is experimentation, so I have to say something about it. It's a huge mountain to climb. It's a huge, what you aspire to reach, it's a lot of work, but you got to start somewhere. So don't be discouraged to start somewhere. We started with 1,000 waste pickers in South Africa, and look where we are now. So start small and build from that.
I think that's a great way to end it. Thank you so much. Please give it up for Molun and Ashish.